Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today I want to take a look at these two knives. This is the Begg Steelcraft Bodega. This is the Begg Steelcraft Glimpse. And Steelcraft means these are production versions of Begg custom or semi-custom knives. And these are, the Steelcraft series has been around for a while, so probably most of you are familiar with it. These two are the newest iterations from them, and they are made by different companies, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this comparison. Also, you know, I could see the same person kind of looking at these and being interested in both and not being sure sort of which one to go with. So that's the other sort of part of this discussion here. And so hopefully this will be helpful along those lines. I do want to get one thing out of the way first, and that is, you know, the price on these is very different. There's over $100 difference in price. This guy is going for $349. This guy is going for $465. So that's a significant price difference. Okay, and I will talk a little bit about that, but if the only thing you're worried about comparing on these two is the price, well, they cost different prices. So you can look that up online and make your choice that way. All right. If you're more interested in some of the other things that are happening, then stick with me and let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with these two knives. First of all, let's comment a little on quality, and that is to say both of these are very well put together. Both of these are extremely smooth. They you know, everything functions the way it should. There are no, you know, big problems or, you know, quality control issues with either one of these knives, and I haven't even heard of any major issues with these knives. So I think we can sort of say they're kind of close to equal in that particular respect. And if you're familiar with pretty high-end knives, you kind of know the action is going to be very smooth, the detent is going to be dialed in. You know, those kinds of things are definitely on point with both of these. All right, one other interesting point, and I want to put this out there to you guys who are watching. Both of these can be sent to Begg Knives for modification, for, you know, re-anodizing something or putting some kind of creative finish on, or of course the popular one is their cracked ice finish. I would love to know if there's somebody watching this who's had that done to your knife. I've thought about getting cracked ice just right around here. I think that would look really cool. But if someone's out there watching who's had that done and would like to weigh in with some cost or something about the experience, that would be very helpful. I have reached out to Begg Knives and he messaged me back when I follow, and we just haven't been able to connect on some of the questions that I had for him. So if I get that response, I'll put it down in the comments below so that you guys can get some insights directly from the horse's mouth. Or maybe later on when I make this review, I'll say more about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into beginning with how these are going to carry in pocket. These are both very similar in size, around 9-inch knives, but there are some significant differences that are going to relate to how this carries from day to day in, you know, a pair of jeans or something. Of course, both clips are fairly deep. That's reasonably comparable, but there's about an ounce difference in weight. So the large Bodega is around 6 ounces, 6 and change, and the Glimpse is around 5 ounces, like 5 and change, okay? So there's about an ounce difference in weight, which is certainly noticeable and something that you may care about for carry. The other thing, though, that may balance that out or may even turn the tide a different direction is the Glimpse is quite thick, okay? So this is, you know, over 5/8 of an inch thick. This is a thick knife. And when you have it in pocket, you notice because there's all that material, all that width kind of taking up space. And in some cases, you know, depending on how tight your jeans are, maybe even pushing in on your leg. This being thinner, all right, carries a little more inconspicuously. It drops into pocket, and yes, you can feel the weight a little bit, but because it's quite thin, or I guess thinner, you don't seem to notice it. It's not as, you can't feel it as much in your pocket when you're carrying it. So that's a bit of a difference, and one of those things may be more important to you. Maybe you've carried thicker knives before and you really don't like it, or maybe you've carried heavier knives before and you really don't like it, and so one of those may be more important to you than the other, but I did want to point out that difference. Otherwise, in terms of size, they're very close, and it's a bit surprising, even on camera still. The Glimpse does look a little bit smaller, but it isn't. They're virtually the same size. All right. Let's talk then about The blade, both of these blades are S35VN. Both of them are beautiful. The glimpse is available. If you don't like this fuller, and that's maybe, maybe you just love Todd Begg's designs, but you wish those fullers weren't on there, the glimpse is available without. To my knowledge, the Bodega is not. If you get a Bodega, it's going to have this fuller. However, I do know for sure you can buy a glimpse that doesn't have it. And that may be a kind of a key deciding or determining factor for you. I will say this about them. In cutting tasks, and I've done quite a bit of cutting with both of these, the fuller on the Bodega, or I mean on the glimpse, does kind of interfere with cutting a little bit more. And I think it's because look how much closer it is to the cutting edge. So on the Bodega, by the time you get up to the fuller, you're pretty much, whatever you're cutting is kind of opened wider and just kind of moves past this fuller without interacting with it in any way. However, the bottom part of the fuller here on the glimpse does get gummed up a little bit, and I have had to clean it out a couple of times. So if you're worried about that, I can tell you from my own personal experience that can happen more so with the glimpse than the Bodega. The other thing that's of course important to notice, by the way, I did measure behind the edge and they're both 20 thousandths behind the edge. So essentially the same. They're both going to cut really, really nicely. Both going to perform nicely for EDC tasks. One thing that's probably, well, not probably, definitely worth noting is you're getting quite a bit more blade length, okay, on the Bodega. This is 3.5 inches of cutting edge and this is 3 7/8 inches of cutting edge. So that's a significant difference. And you want, and that means that you're carrying a knife essentially the same size, okay, but you're getting a lot more cutting edge out of the Bodega than you are from the glimpse. Now, maybe you're not that big on it, and 3.5 inches, by the way, is going to be plenty for most tasks that you're going to be wanting to do, but it is worth at least being aware of. All right. Moving on now to handle construction and ergonomics. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on frame lock versus liner lock. Okay, obviously they're different, but what we can spend some time on is ergonomics and on how they function. Both, I would say, are pretty easy to actuate. The lock bar tension is pretty nice. The flipper detents, of course, are both set really well. You get these knives in hand though, and you can really notice a significant difference. Both are comfortable, both are nice and feel good in hand. However, the glimpse definitely feels a little softer, a little more rounded, and it is, okay? A couple people have mentioned a hot spot. I mentioned this in my first impressions on the liner. In use with my right hand, I don't find this to be an issue because the lock bar kind of falls right into the crease of my index finger. And so when I'm cutting stuff with this, I don't even notice it. Okay, even when I go up to here, it still ends up in the crease of my middle finger. And I've also pointed that the same issue out on this guy. So they both kind of have that same ergonomic weakness. For me, it misses no matter how I hold the knife, it just misses, kind of falls into the crease of my finger. For some people out there though, I'm sure that's gonna hit kind of like right on a fat spot or right on, if it gets into one of these places on your finger, it's gonna be uncomfortable. Luckily they fit my hand pretty well, but I'm sure there's gonna be some people out there who are going to experience that as a bit of an issue. Now, the Bodega is much grippier, okay? And so from some, in some respect, when I have this in hand, I feel a little more comfortable, a little more confident than I do with the glimpse. There's not a ton of traction here. Even on the back spine, it feels good, and it's definitely plenty grippy because of the carbon fiber and the G10. Those are materials that tend to be fairly good for holding on to. But just there is that difference in grippiness to be aware of, and that could be different. I have the check pattern Bodega. There's the sort of starburst pattern Bodega. I don't really like that finish, but that may be different. That would be, I'm assuming, a little smoother than mine is. All right, so in hand, they feel quite different. The Bodega feels a little more confidence inspiring to me, while on the other hand, the glimpse feels a little more comfortable, right? It's sort of, I don't know, maybe this would be like sitting in the seat of a race car, and this would be like sitting on a soft, comfy couch. One feels like I'm ready for anything. The other one is admittedly much more comfortable. All right, so that's probably worth that's something that I'm sure some of you will care about. The other big difference is the Bodega has this nice finger choil, and I like that finger choil an awful lot. You guys know I'm a fan of knives with finger choils. The Glimpse kind of still has it. Okay, so my finger does fit in there pretty naturally, and I have used the knife for cutting in this configuration, and it's pretty good. Now, the one thing I will say is the top swedge is quite aggressive on the back spine here, so you're not going to choke up with your thumb. It's going to get really uncomfortable really quickly if you put any pressure at all on that back spine because it's quite thin. So in terms of ergonomics, they're just very different, okay? And probably whichever one you prefer. I will admit that I prefer the Bodega just a little more because I like that extra tactile, grippiness that just says, hey, when I grab this knife, it kind of grabs me back. The Glimpse is definitely comfortable and it feels really nice. Now, let's make a little comment since we're talking about the handles here. This one, it definitely looks a little fancier, okay? There's more milling that's going on. There's a little more refinement in the work that's been done. This is still gorgeous. It's extremely well done. The transition here is really, really good. But certainly this feels like a more high-end knife, a more gentleman's knife. This maybe feels a little more like like something you could use and carry with a little less concern about potentially damaging it. All right, and that can go either way. Some guys are gonna really, really prefer something more like this, and some guys are gonna go, no, if I'm buying a bag knife, I want it to be dressed up a little, okay? And I get both sides of that argument, and I really even argue with myself about that. So I'm not sure which one to award more points to as we say that, but the difference is absolutely there, all right? By the way, I guess along those lines, the last unspoken thing that I kind of implied there is that the Bodega is likely going to show wear a little more easily. All right, so let's kind of come to a bit of a conclusion here, if the best conclusion we can come to, okay? Both of these are gorgeous, gorgeous knives. Both of them are, exceptional, examples of what a high-end production knife should be in designs that are highly sought after, okay? Bag knives are not easy to come by. Even the semi-custom, even the mid-tech bag knives are hard to get a hold of and expensive if you are able to buy one, all right? In my own mind and for my own preferences, I do like the Bodega just a little better. And one of the big reasons is I tend to, this carries for me just a little nicer in pocket because of the thinness. The other thing is I like that extra bit of cutting edge. It's not necessary, I just like it, okay? Now, one thing I would say is, if you want one of these in particular, don't buy the other thinking that will make you happy, okay? Maybe there's no Glimpses available, so you're gonna buy a Bodega to hold you over or to sort of satisfy that desire for a production bag. Well, I would say wait for the one you want, and even within the specific models, right? It took me a little while to pick this one up because they didn't have exactly the configuration that I wanted. And so I think, again, when you're spending that kind of money, and when it's a knife like this, that's as dressed up as these are, you definitely wanna get the one that you like and the one that you want. I hope you enjoyed the video. I would love to hear your comments below, especially if you have further insights into any of this stuff. And I would like to know below, maybe we'll do like a little informal survey. If you were gonna buy one, or let's say someone said, hey, I'll give you one or the other, but you can't sell it, right? I don't want people just saying, well, I'll take the more expensive one so I could sell it and use the money. You can't sell it, but if someone said, hey, I'll just give you one or the other, which one would you take? All right, I'd love to hear that down below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.